and we have reading experts coming in, and it is about have questions, join a panel of experts as they lead an open discussion about LGBTQ community. We have Dr. Michael Patrick from Nationwide Children's Hospital coming. He does a podcast. He's done 2 other host moderations for us, where he's monitored the program for us. And we're taking questions beforehand, and then it'll go through the whole group as to everybody who gets to have your question heard that way. So it should be a great evening, and I hope you can make it for that. Before we get started, I want to thank Mathnasium for all their ongoing support for us. And also, Nothing Bundt Cakes here in Dublin, they helped us out with some of the buntlets, because I wanted to take this opportunity because we are celebrating P.E.R.C. P.E.R.C has been around for about 15 years. So we thought this would be a great opportunity to say, we're so happy that parents like you come, that we have PTOs that have been tremendously supportive to us. And so this morning, we had a picture of the people who started the program. And I wanted just to tell you, I thought I'd paraphrase it a little bit, but there are 2 people up there. Linda Wilkie was a past PTO president, I believe at Kaufman. Julie Wilt was a past president at Jerome. Dr. Joanne Deniaco, she heads Dublin Schools and Safe Drug-Free Schools. Andy Zerwick is a Jerome guidance counselor. Sue Petrus is up there, and Cheryl Young is up there. They all came together and said, so the story goes, if I can paraphrase it just a little bit, the problem is that it became noticeable there was underage drinking happening at homes when parents were there. And the PTO presidents from the high schools were very concerned about this for many, many different reasons. It just was starting to be this like okay kind of thing. And this is before even the law was passed, of that not happening. And so what they did, which I think was just great, and why we're all standing here today, is that they got all the PTOs together and said, we can do something about this. We can educate our parents about safe places for our kids to be and understand like the teenage brain. So let's put together some programming for parents so we can educate them about new changes that are happening. And so they kind of pause and think, about pros and cons to things where they have scientific information. So they all came together, and in a year time, they were putting a bylaw together. They were getting programs started. They, at that time, went to all the PTOs and asked for funding for this. So today, we received money from all the PTOs to put on these programs. And they also said, we need someone from your PTOs to come to the P.E.R.C meetings. And that happens today, where when we're putting programming together, we have people who are in it, like, oh yeah, our parents are worried about this or that. So then, and it has evolved over the years, P.E.R.C, because we do lots and lots of different issues now, which is pertinent to this time. There's so much going on that affect all of our kids. So we are really happy that we're still here. We're really happy that we have programming like today happening, and we're looking forward to the future with the new programming happening as well too. So today was great. Take buntlets out there. There's a whole bunch of those they're wonderful. So, and I'm sure if you came home with one, your kids will be excited too. But we wanted to take time to do that. But we have a great program happening now, and on my little spot here. And we want to get started with them because they're fantastic. The morning group had a great time and it was wonderful. But the topic is, no is a complete sentence. Finding parental strengths to set limits and say no to your child. We're happy to present this great program. It was first presented at Be Well last February. And P.E.R.C thought it was wonderful. We had people go to it, and they said, we need to do this here. So we are so excited. that they're here. Jen Schwanke, the principal from Indian Run, will start us off and she can introduce the others. So enjoy.
Okay, hi everyone. I see so many friendly faces out there. Good to see you all. Thanks for coming out. It's super cold out. And I know you all want to be in your jammies right now. So good job for you for coming out tonight. We are here to talk a little bit about the word no as it pertains to parenting and our journey as parents, and also talk about our perspective as educators. So we're all going to individually introduce ourselves here in a moment. But we do want to say, and we'll probably say it 15 different ways, we are not by any means the parental experts. They're all like, we are doing it right alongside you. We have kids that range from about 3 years old to 10th grade, so we are following right along with hopefully where you all are. We will have some time at the very end for questions. So if you've got something you want to ask us, just hang on to that, and in the end we will share it. Now, we're going to start with a very short video, no laughing allowed, because none of you have ever done any of these things, I'm sure. So you can go ahead and play the video. Let's start.
Cool. Come on, let's get to work. Come on, let's go. Teal.
Sweetheart, I said it already once now. Please turn off the TV. Mommy is very busy today and I can't do this right now, okay? Okay, sweetheart, I need you to listen with your ears and see me with your eyes. Okay? Mommy is busy today. You have to go to school. I need you to get up and turn off that TV. I know you can do it, okay?
For real. Teal, I'm serious. Now I'm really getting upset. You need to turn off that TV. You know what? If you do not turn off that TV, I am going to ground you for 3 months. You know what? I'm going to take all your toys and I'm going to give them to the poor. You're never going to school again. Why don't you listen to me? Why doesn't anybody ever listen to me? If you turn off the TV, I'll buy you a new Lego set. Ooh, it's a big deal.
Does that sound like good parenting to you? Well, you should go to kidsinthehouse.com where you can find more than 10,000 parenting videos.
Yes. Well, welcome everybody. We're so glad that you're here. Just real briefly, we want to just kind of tell you how this all began. We're going to share our stories with you a little bit more individually, but these people behind me are some of the best people I could work with and the best people to talk through some of these challenges that we have with parenting, because this is hard work. And what we started finding was, me in particular, I am a classroom teacher, and I would always be prepared for my classroom conferences with parents. And I have these great pages ready to go with reading scores and math scores. But we always, my teaching partner and I, we always started by saying, to parents, we'd like to hear from you first. What's on your mind? And over the last few years, we never got to the reading scores and we never got to the math scores. And the academic stuff has been kind of pushed aside for the more social, emotional wellness of the kid. Lots of questions from parents about setting limits, screen times, friendships, creating structure and routine at home. And so that's kind of how this all started. We started talking after school, lunch, lots of times, texting back and forth, and we thought if we put our heads together, we might be able to come up with a program that's helpful to you, and it surely helps us. It was mentioned we did this for the first time last February, and it's changed a lot since last February for all of us. So we're just glad you're here, and we're hoping that you'll walk away tonight with something that can help you at home.
Okay, so now I'll introduce you and tell you who we are. I think it was mentioned earlier, my name is Jen Schwanke. I'm the principal at Indian Run Elementary School. I'm in my 22nd year, actually, as an educator. I started out at the middle school level. I taught language arts and then was a middle school assistant principal, so my job was discipline. We can talk about that for about 4 weeks. But I also taught at the high school, and I always joke that I get to have extra credit for that because I only taught summer school, but it was all the kids who had failed the first round. So they really didn't want to be there. So I get extra credit for that high school experience. And then I also teach at the graduate school level. We are all going to share something that we just named our taglines. And these are things that keep us rooted as parents, things that we really try to remember. And mine is that as a collective parent group, we can't simultaneously bemoan how soft our children are and then go to great lengths to protect them from hard things. We see this all the time from teachers, or as teachers or educators. We see parents who are like, oh my gosh, kids are so soft today, we need to push them, they can't persevere. But then we do that thing, and I think all of us understand it because we wanted to do it as well. We want to do what they say, the lawnmower parent, the snowplow parent, where we clear the way and make things really easy for our kids. We don't want them to struggle because there's nothing harder than seeing your child struggle. But we can't do that and then be like, why are they so soft? Another tagline is, I think it's really important that we all hold on to our philosophy as parents in spite of other parents. I think this is really tricky, especially in a town like the one we live in, and especially in the world of social media, because comparisons are always there, and I don't care how strong you are internally, you have that voice. It's like, well, maybe I should be doing that, or maybe I should be doing that. And there's that person inside of you that doesn't want to admit to the dark, dark times in your house where like everybody's screaming and everybody's like a mess and not doing what they're supposed to do. But we have to remember that what we're doing as parents really can define us and not let what other people say or say they do define us. Real quick, I forgot this morning, you guys, did you realize I forgot to introduce my family?
I did too.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I have 2 kids. I have a 7th grader and a 4th grader, and my husband is an athletic director at Sells Middle School, so we're pretty immersed in the whole parenting and education thing right now. Sarah.
All right, and I can tell you she's doing a darn good job because I have little Autumn in my 4th grade class right now, and so she's doing great. I know you'll hear her kind of give you the different message tonight, but she's doing a great job. I'm Sarah Miles. I've been teaching in Dublin City Schools for 20 years, and 19 of those I've been in 4th grade. So when I say I get that age group, I really mean it. I love 4th graders. I love that age of kids. They're just on the cusp of like still needing you, still loving school, curious, and then, wanting that independence. So I feel like I can bring a little bit of that to the table. My husband Chris and I, we have 2 children. We have a 10th grader at Kaufman and a 7th grader at Sells. And so I teach at Indian Run. We live in Old Dublin. My whole life is like a radius of a mile. So I feel really connected to this community. My tagline is, I'm okay with being the mean mom. And I don't know if it's the mean mom or just the mom that's like, sorry, like, maybe, not the friend mom or, another way to say that. But I am okay with being the one who says, no to Snapchat. And that's just, it doesn't fall in line with our philosophy. Or I'm okay when my kids are like, everybody's getting new cars. Or why don't we live in a 2-story house? And I'm like, we're okay with that. Have you ever seen your dad and I care about those things? No, that's not important to our family structure and our family values. So I'm okay with the one who's saying no and being the mean mom. And the other thing I would also kind of put in there is I'm okay with, there's going to be tricky situations for our kids as they grow, and that are happening right now, and I'm okay with being that excuse. Their dad is okay with being that excuse. Like, my mom would be so mad at me, or you know my mom, which a lot of her friends, their friends do. So you know my mom, and you know how she is, and I'm okay with that. I'm not here to be their friend's friend, and so those are my taglines.
Thank you. My name is Andrew Phillips. I'm the school counselor at Indian Run. This is my 7th year there, and prior to that, I spent 3 years in a different elementary school. Prior to that, I worked in adult mental health. So that's my background. A lot of years with K-5, learning a lot and getting a lot of experience. And then a whole different learning, having a 3-year-old, which is wonderful. I love it, but man, it's challenging, as you guys all know. We have new adventures, new challenges every day, and the things we preach and believe, we get a chance to practice, which as a parent, it's hard. It's challenging. Like they said, we are not perfect, and we're constantly learning. But my wife is also a teacher. She's a kindergarten teacher at Bexley City Schools. And we enjoy talking about this because I can tell you guys, it's not different over there. These challenges in parenting are universal. Saying no and creating that structure, it's hard, and kids challenge us no matter where you are. So my tagline I chose, because we're fairly young in our parenthood, I don't know what my kid's gonna do, but I'm gonna do my best to be ready for it. I think of that because, I look at her and I'm like, oh, she's just a beautiful little snowflake, and you think you're perfect in every way, but she's not. And I think one of the biggest errors that we can make is to say, my kid would never lie. My kid would never do something deceptive. My kid would never manipulate a situation to get what they need. I want to be the parent who says, okay, I love my child, the most important person in the world, but I better be ready, and I better set up the expectations now. Somebody really smart, Sarah, told me before our daughter was born, you get lots of advice, and this one stuck with me. Parent for what you want to see 2 years ahead, what you want to see 2 years down the road, and I always remember that because, if I want my child to be like this, that gives you a little bit of guidance into the kind of structure and routine you want to create for them now.
My name is Amber Brown. I'm a 15-year educator in Bellevue City Schools. I'm an intervention specialist who deals primarily with autism and low incidence, like kids that have more significant needs and behavior, all through grades K through 5. I will say I'm fairly good at behaviors at school. Parenting behaviors are a little bit different. And I was the perfect parent before I became a parent. I was the one in the mall or whatever, like, ugh, my kid will never do that. And when my daughter was 3 years old, she was the one rolling on the ground, me, get out, I said get out. That video is probably me just with someone else's head on it. In my home, I have my husband Joel. He is also in education. He's a school-age administrator for a child care center in the Westerville area. My daughter is in 5th grade. We live in Westerville. That's where my husband and I grew up, and we decided to just remain there. My daughter's in 5th grade, and my son is in 1st grade. Both of them are completely opposite. My daughter is basically me in childhood form, super anxious about things, very particular about how things go. Average academically, does well because she works really hard to do it, but academics does not come easy to her. My son, opposite. I just kind of look at him and he follows directions and he is cute and super, super smart where he can kind of talk his way out of things because cognitively he's just way above probably me right now. But they both bring totally different things to my parenting skill set. My tagline is, I hear you, but I want my kids to feel validated in being able to express how they're feeling about things, but also know that it may not be how we're going to do things as a family. So I want them to be comfortable to voice their opinion to me and share how they're feeling, but then also if it's not how we properly think in our family, to kind of be able to switch between that. And then I've also learned as a parent in most of my adult life, I struggle with anxiety and depression, and my emotional state is super important to keep things productive versus a power struggle. So I know about myself, if I do not get a workout in for a day or two, I'm going to be short fused in terms of what I'm patient about in my home and how my kids handle things. So I know that I might say, we're going to talk about this later because I'm not ready to right now as the adult of the situation. So that's just kind of a little bit. One thing we need to think about too in parenting, I just need to say, I said this morning, and lightning did not strike, so that's good. But I just feel like I want everyone to know that we're not perfect parents, and we're doing this together as like a group of parents. So I don't want it to be like talking at you like you should do this because I did it this way. It's just giving you the power to say like I can do things and just empowering you that way. But looking back at, we have to be aware of our blind spots. Like I said with me, I have to be able to get some physical movement in for me to be well. And we look at this tree, and our roots of our family and how we were raised are really important to how we are parenting. So we have to be aware of some of those things that might have happened in our past. So in my family, my roots go kind of deep because my parents were divorced at the age of when I was 14. So my mom, wonderful woman, super good parenting, but when my dad left and just left the picture, my mom just wasn't really able to be present for me in terms of my relationship. So one of my blind spots that I'm aware of is that I kind of go all in with my kids' relationships. I want to know who they talk to at recess, why they talked about that, what that friend is like. So I kind of swing totally the opposite direction of being overly involved. Does that make sense? So we just have to be aware of what our blind spots are from how we grew up and then how that transitions into our parenting. So we're each going to kind of share some of our own blind spots.
So when we were talking about this, I had like this mental Rolodex of different blind spots. You know, because you know, really, like, when you think about it, so many things about your own experience shape who you are, and that applies to parenthood too. And you know, for me, I grew up in a really different area than this. I grew up on a farm. You know, it's really rural. We had a lot of animals. And you know, I was the youngest of 3 siblings. My dad worked crazy hours, and so a lot of times I ended up being the one who, you know, sorry, we can't do this. You can't play soccer. We don't have time. We can't get you there. You have to miss out on this field trip because we're having an issue with the livestock today, which is an issue a lot of our students wouldn't know about. But you know, just things that were priorities over the things that I hope to do. And I catch myself as a parent wanting to prevent my daughter from ever having to miss out on anything. Almost to a point that is too much. You know, it's like, well, you got to do swimming and taekwondo and dance, and we got to get gymnastics, and you know, the reality is my counselor brain says missing out on things that shows you that it's okay to be disappointed. And that's actually a good tool for us as parents to teach our kids you aren't always going to have it your way, and there are other priorities in the world. So for me, something I have to keep myself aware of is my tendency to try and make sure she never misses out. That could impact how I am as a parent.
So you're probably all thinking, wait, is this their therapy or something? So we're just sharing our blind spots because we know that some of them are universal, and because we as educators have worked really, really hard to not make them blind spots, but very visible. My blind spots are, I grew up, again, in a very different area. It was rural. My parents were farmers. And about the time I was age 8, there was a terrible drought, and it affected our family farm. My parents had very little money anyway, but when that came, the hay stopped growing, the money dried up, there was no money. I mean, there was no money. And I remember my dad telling my mom she had to go to Gold Circle in Akron and get a whole bunch of Value Time canned vegetables because they were only 19 cents. And I remember many dinners where it was a can of green beans and then several cans of fruit cocktail, you know, with the disgusting cherries inside. I just can't. So I was very hungry, and I was very hungry for quite some time. Another thing, too, was clothing. All of our clothing came from thrift stores, and I remember clearly my dad he would have coins in his pocket every now and then. And if he sat down on the couch, I could bet that someone would fall out, and I would gather those coins and save them. And then if I had about $12 or $13, I could go to Bobby G and buy a new blouse. So those things affected me deeply to the point now where it's like 11:59. I'm like to my kids, "You guys hungry? You want lunch? You want lunch? Want me to make a grilled cheese sandwich? How about some eggs? How about a burrito?" Like, I want them to eat. I don't want them to eat 3 meals a day when it's time. And they'll look at me like, "Mom, we're not hungry." And I'll be like, but we have to have lunch. We have to. And dinner too. And my husband's like, "It's okay. It's okay." But I feel this need to feed them. And I feel a need to clothe them too. So, one little hole in the socks, I'm like, "We need 6 more socks. Like, come on." I want to fix that for them. And I realize it's fine. They don't need to eat at 9, noon, and 6. They don't need to have like a stocking cap and mittens and gloves. But that's a blind spot that I definitely bring to the table, and I think that I need to actively work to let that go.
This is actually a new slide for us, a new topic, because like we said, things have come up in our conversations, and we just realized like this family of origin is what it's sometimes referred to is so important. And we all are affected by it. If any of you have ever done any like marriage counseling or marriage preparation, even in marriages, it comes back to family of origin. When will we set up the Christmas decorations? Will that be before Thanksgiving? Will that be after Thanksgiving? We still have that conversation in our family. But I grew up in just a blue-collar town in a small town in Michigan. Mom and dad are still married. It was really, when you picture it, Beaver Cleaver, whatever you think of when you think of that situation, it was that. It was very light, it was very loving. My parents were a marriage encounter, everything was very, you can hear the birds singing behind me right now. That's what it was. But we didn't ever really talk about the hard stuff, I didn't have a curfew because my parents just said, "We trust you and just let us know when you get home." And, we never talked about, well, what's happening after 11 o'clock when everybody else had the curfew, or what's everybody doing, or, we didn't have those hard conversations, or what will you do if you get in this situation? Those are the kinds of things that influence my parenting now, is especially in this day and age with social media and all of that, we got to have those hard conversations. And when we talk about parenting is hard, we'll just put that into that category. We've got to talk about the social media. We've got to talk about the bullying. We've got to talk about the sexting. We've got to talk about, you name it. There's everything under the sun. So that's kind of where, my roots are. We need to really talk about the difficult, challenging stuff and those situational experiences, not just the light-heartedness.
Okay, so the next thing is we're going to ask the question, why are we parenting? And if I were to go and ask each of you that question, I'd probably get a bunch of different answers, but they probably would have something to do along the lines with to be a guide to our child, to love them unconditionally, to teach good values, to protect our children, to offer them support for their entire life. But I think the bottom line on parenting is that we all want to raise fully functional adults who can take care of themselves to the best of their abilities and to make a positive contribution to society. Would you agree with that statement? Yeah. So in order to do this, we have to set boundaries, and we have to begin to teach kids those boundaries. So that's saying stand for something or you'll fall for anything is so true in parenting. If you don't already have like an established idea of what you want to do in terms of parenting and guiding your kids, you can fall for that cute little boy that's going to come on, "I love you, mommy," and you'll give them whatever you want if you're not aware of those things. So boundaries are a safety net for all of us. And if we think about this picture of roads and speed limits, it's there as a guide for us to keep us safe. Otherwise, we just have this machine that would go everywhere, and we have to be able to, follow the rules and speed limits. A story for me is I love the beach, and we were driving for spring break one time, and I really wanted to get there quickly, so I figured, my minivan can go pretty fast. I can push my foot on the gas, and we'll just get there quicker. So going 90, 5 and a 70, and there's a little bit of problem with that when you pass a cop, so you get pulled over and get a ticket. You know, I can physically go faster in my van, but I'm not allowed to, like I shouldn't, you know? So we have to set those boundaries and teach our kids those, because they're not born with natural boundaries other than pain. So we do teach those to our kids. And if we don't begin to teach those boundaries for our kids, that's where we see a lot of the behavior, because they're trying to figure out a boundary. And they'll ask a lot of questions because they want to know, like, where is the limit here? If I do this, will I cross it? My daughter, this was not too recent, but within the past year, and she is doing a lot of, you guys don't do anything for me. And we were at Chipotle one Sunday after church, and I told my husband, I said, just let me go through with this. Like, I really feel this is how I need to handle something. Typically, I go up and order because I feel like that glass at Chipotle is like blocking of their voice. So I'll order for them. And I told her, I said, hey, I think you're ready to order for yourself. And she's like, no, I'm not going to. And I was like, well, you're ready. And I went through the line, we went to pay, and she goes, you did not order for me. And I said, well, it was your turn, and you're fully capable of ordering. And she goes, how can you not order for me? And I said, well, wait, I don't do anything for you. So I'm not going to do anything for you right now. And like, that was just one instance where I set a boundary, and she crossed it, of arguing with me about doing things for her, and I kind of showed her, you got to do it yourself sometimes. So.
No, you have to tell that you sat down.
We sat down.
I put the money on the
I put the money on the table. She kind of sat there like, I can't believe my mom will buy me lunch. And like really pouted. I mean, it was pretty pathetic. But we ate our dinner or lunch, and we were getting ready to go. And she's like, I still haven't eaten. And I said, well, here's the money. And she went and did it and then ate it at home. But just a reminder, kids crave limits, and the thing that they argue about the most is those limits. And when we set the limits, they know what can be crossed and what can't be crossed.
Almost forgot the best part of the story.
The kids sat there and didn't eat. That's the whole point. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this word no, and how the word no really is enough. You have a picture of a beautiful child here, and that child is saying, I need you to be strong enough to say no. And that is really true. It relates to what Amber just said about them needing the boundaries. Sarah, do you want me to give a shout out to Love and Logic?
Sure. If you don't follow them already, and if this sounds like the kind of thing that works for you, Love and Logic is a great resource. I've done a couple of their trainings. They have a lot of online resources. If you sign up for their email, they give you a weekly, like a little scenario, like what happens with a temper tantrum? How can you diffuse this situation? So it's really great. And they have a great tagline that we use a lot, don't we?
Exactly. So when we say no to our children, I think a lot of times adults confuse love with yes or no. And I think that's a great mistake. I think it's important to put love in a whole different bucket. We're going to talk later about how when they're older, they will thank you for saying no now. It's important, I think, that we don't bargain or negotiate. Kids love to negotiate. They love to. And they will suck you into that negotiation so fast, and they will bargain with you. And all of a sudden you catch yourself, and you're thinking, why am I negotiating with a 6-year-old? Why am I negotiating with a 13-year-old? And you need to give yourself permission to say, I'm the adult. I'm the one that gets to say yes or no here. It's important, too. I find myself often saying you should. You should pick up your wet towel. You should get on Matthew right now. You should do this. You should do that. Should is not a yes or a no. Should is a should. And kids know that it's a should. Because if they should, then they also maybe can't, or won't, or shouldn't. So we need to avoid that word should and say this is what the expectation is. A lot of times parents get a little bit weird about this. They feel like if I say a solid no, that's over-controlling my child. And we're here to say it's not control. It's a boundary that's safe and is understandable. We see it really alarms us as educators how many times we'll have a kindergartner or a first grader come in and we can tell they've never heard the word no. We can see it, because when we say no, no, you will not throw paper towels at your friend. No, you will not throw that iPad across the room during math class. No, you will not. They look at us like, so we need kids, even at a very, very young age, to be able to hear the word no. My story is, one time we were driving down the road, we were going to Mackinac Island for summer vacation, and the kids had a Gatorade. And we had bought it at the gas station. I thought I was being such a super mom, right? Buying Gatorade, because, you know, they can't be thirsty or hungry. So I bought them the Gatorade, and it was one of those giant 32-ounce ones. They start fighting about it. And I said, we are not fighting about this Gatorade. And guess what they did? They fought about the stupid Gatorade. And I thought, okay, there we go. Kids in the car, whatever. And then I thought, no, I said no. So I reached in the back, and I grabbed the Gatorade, I rolled down my window, and I threw it as hard as I could into the ditch. Sorry to the Michigan Transportation Department, I'm sorry, I still feel bad about that. There's a lime green Gatorade somewhere along the highway. But the kids looked at me like, and I said no. Now, I think they think I'm a little bit crazy, but that's okay. I want them to think that I will do anything. When I say no, I'm going to reinforce that no. I'd like to contend, too, that yes is also a boundary. When you say yes to something, that can be as solid and as firm as no. We also like to point out, too, that when we talk to our kids, we don't need to do, I believe in the video did it, a little bit of that condescending, now honey, with your ear. There's a certain point where kids are like, oh, please don't talk to me like that. Kids want to be talked to like they're human beings, like they're grown-ups. They will respect and respond to that kind of talk much better than, you're talking to your 9-year-old, no, baby, I need you to please make your bed. No. You need to make your bed, and then we're going to leave. So using a tone with them that they can really relate to.
And I think that language part is so important and so tricky, especially for me. Like, I catch myself, and I've been noticing it probably more this week because I've been thinking about this, but I'm really quick to say, hey, Sydney, put your bowl in the sink, okay? And just that simple okay leaves her enough wiggle room to smile at me and realize, wait, no is a possible response. And then I'm like, uh-oh, okay. now it's kind of game on, So practicing that language and not leaving them the wiggle room and letting them know that what you say is what it is actually, it's comforting for them, and it prevents a lot of struggles down the line. But, as I think about this, I think that something important to remember is how perceptive kids are. They are incredibly good at reading us, and it's hardwired, one of my favorite things in learning child development was how kids learn emotions from watching us, and that's how we create attachments, and that's how they learn appropriate responses to different stimuli. But that perception continues as they get older, and they learn to use it in different ways, and they know us so well. They know our hot spots. They know the things that push our buttons. They know the things that can make us waver and why they do. As you can imagine, being a counselor, I'm always like, in our family, Sydney, we are kind. We share in our family. And I'm always giving those messages because they're things that are our family values. So my story is the other day, a couple weeks ago, after Halloween, we had the rule in our house, one piece of candy per day, and because she has way too much and it's ridiculous. And she came up to me while I was doing the dishes, and she knows Twix are my favorite. And so she came up with a Twix. I said, Daddy, I want to give you a piece of candy. And my counselor heart went, oh my gosh, she's so generous. She's so kind. And then my dad eyes saw the other hand behind her back. And I said, what do you have, Sydney? And she went, well, I'm going to eat with you. And I thought, you're so manipulative. But just knowing that trying to get their way is developmentally appropriate, really. And it's not, it doesn't mean your kid's bad that they try and do these things, but it's important as parents to realize, I need to be ready. My kid's going to try some things, and I need to set structure in place. I need to teach them that we do have expectations, and we do have rules in our family, and when we say no, that's what it is. Just like when we say yes, that can be powerful, that's what it is. I think a lot of understanding that is what can keep you out of a power struggle too, because if you get offended really quickly, you know, when my daughter, her other favorite thing to say right now is, "You are mean, and I'm mad at you." And if I take that personally, my response might be, "Well, I'm mad at you." And then all of a sudden we have a back and forth, which is going to make her feel like there's more room for me to waver. Preparing yourself and creating that structure gives comfort, and it creates a situation where you're more likely to help them understand what the boundaries really are.
Okay. So this is all hard work, but this is where the real hard work starts, because power struggles are hard. I'm a redhead, I'm a Taurus, and I am so stubborn and just, you know, I want to have my way. And then I have my husband, so we're going back to that family of origin and us coming together and parenting together. And he's from a single father, a military father. So you know that there was a power struggle one way in his house, and that was his dad's way. So power struggles is where we really want to put in a lot of the work, because everybody comes away feeling a wreck. Right? You feel exhausted. You probably say something you don't mean. We say things we don't mean. The kids are saying things. It's loud. It's messy. It's where we want to put in the work. The other thing to kind of keep in mind is the best thing for an unregulated child. So a kid who's amping up, that tantrum's about to start, that, you know, yelling, screaming, whatever it is, the best thing for an unregulated child is a regulated adult. So as hard as it is, we're going to try real hard to keep calm, keep our cool, you know, keep that level, that playing field level. I was going to say about that, but that was good. Yeah, so power struggles, just, you know, we want to keep that, time is your best friend. That's what I want to say. Time is your best friend. In today's world, with just the immediate, you know, response of email, text, social media, we're all very quick to feel like we have to respond right away. That, you know, we have to engage in that power struggle. But I will tell you that time is your friend. You do not have to answer things right away. You do not have to have that last word. You can walk away. You can give yourself a timeout. You can use phrases to help diffuse the situation, like, "I know you're upset right now. I'm upset right now. You know, I can tell that this is really a bad time. We're gonna need to come back and talk about this later." And so, as hard as it is, that's where a lot of the work comes into play. When you're angry, when we're all angry, when a consequence, we like to call it, you know, more like a consequence instead of maybe of a punishment, when a consequence does need to happen, it's okay to delay. Because otherwise we end up saying things like the woman in the video, right? "You're grounded for 3 months. Is that feasible? I don't know. I don't think it would be for my husband and I. That's a really long time to try and enforce that. And what does that look like? What does that mean? So, delay. It's okay. It's okay, and actually you can see them kind of cringe a little. I know they like to say cringy or whatever. You see them cringe when you say, "You know what, your dad and I need to talk about this a little bit more, and we'll get back to you." And you can feel them like, "Okay, all right, I know that, you know, there's something coming, and they need to talk about it and discuss it." One thing, and this is where it gets hard, because you want to just say the first thing that comes to your mind, but one thing we really want to encourage is some strategic choice words. So we kind of call them gold versus garbage words. So everybody has that hectic morning going on. You know, the lunches aren't made, the kids are crying, they can't find their shoes, it's chaos, and you know, that can start everybody's day off. I had just a kid last week, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, broke into tears. And I thought it was over something simple, and he said, Mrs. Miles, my dad and I got in a really big fight this morning, and I'm still really sad about it. It sticks with them, those mornings. So what we're going to do is, they know if there's a limit and there's a firm expectation, this car leaves at 7 o'clock every morning. Be ready. So if that means, you got to get your lunch packed the night before, or you got to lay out your practice clothes, or you got to have your Chromebook charged, Chromebooks, that's what it means.
I wanted to talk about that, Karen. When we talked about this when we did this presentation in February, we had a parent who was really taken aback when we said,
Oh, yeah.
if they're not ready, then you leave. And she said, oh, I couldn't. And I said, but if you say you're leaving at 7, and then you don't, then they know you're not really leaving at 7. And she pushed back at us pretty hard, and she said, I couldn't leave my child until 9. She said, he's so anxious. And I'm like, well, you're not leaving him forever. Go back for him. But if the car leaves at 7, and you have to get somewhere, then you get where you need to be, and you say, I will be right back, and you can be ready. And I'm going to tell you people, you have to do it once. Do it one time. My son was Mr. Lollygag in the morning. It made me furious. And he missed the bus one day, and I said, well, you know the walk. And it was raining, it was disgusting, it was cold, and he looked at me like, what? And I'm like, and he walked. And guess how many times he's missed the bus since? He just doesn't do it. He's ready. Teeth brushed, hair done, Chromebooks, all those things packed up. And so it's really, really hard. In that day that it happens, you feel like the worst parent ever. But I think that they like knowing, okay, when mom says the car's leaving at 7, the car's leaving at 7.
Yeah, absolutely.
She was really upset with us.
She-
It was a kind of an awkward moment
Yeah.
because we said, will you leave? She said, I can't. And we said, you can't. I mean, you lock the door. You go back. I'm not leaving forever.
There's a plan. There's a plan. And I will say, like, we all make mistakes. We all have those moments where we forget something. And so in my house, we call those a free pass. You get one free pass a year. My husband works, 8 to 5. I'm at school. We can't run new things. We can't do those things during the school day. So you get one free pass. You forget your tennis shoes for basketball practice. Okay, we get it. Life is crazy. Life gets busy. You get a free pass. But that's not going to happen, more than one. So I like a couple of these other ones. Like, for example, curfew. We're getting to that age, especially if you have teenagers, 1 minute late and you're grounded. By teen, giving them kind of a little feel of some responsibility, a little feel of some choice, maybe rephrasing it to, oh, okay, you're going out tonight, we'll be home at 10 or 10:15. I don't care. My husband doesn't care if it's 10 or 10:15. We're happy with either decision they make, but it gives them a little bit of that power. A little bit of feeling like I can make these decisions. And we're okay with either choice. So just a little bit of thinking about how to rephrase some of the things that may trigger those power struggles or those arguments or those stressful mornings that just kind of stick with your kids all day.
I used to get really just heartsick when I had a bad morning as a kid. I really carried that with me. I think we all did. And so we want to avoid those terrible mornings. We have to think, too, this goes back to the roots, like who we are and what we can live with. And we get into a danger zone, like Sarah said, if we say things like, no phone for a month. Well, y'all really want to do that? Like, no, we don't want to do that. Because we know that there's value in the phone. And we know we can't last 30 days without the phone, unless we've got this deal, I don't know. Another thing that sometimes parents do is, keep talking, 1 more month. Keep talking, 1 more. They're going to keep talking. Because the kid knows that's not going to happen. And so then, again, you're in the power struggle. You have to think of your own sustainability, too, and think of the long game. My story here in the background is little pictures. I have a thing. I cannot stand slammed doors. I can't stand it. I think it's this is just me, the ultimate sign of disrespect. It's the child saying an ultimate F you, slamming the door. And I want to do that, get back here. But then we're just screaming at each other. So what we have taught our kids to do is whenever you say, I just need a minute, we back off. Okay, you can have a minute. So whether it's we've said no to something, or there's been something hard that happened at school or whatever, and we're kind of going into the darkest place in the room, if our kids say, can I have a minute? We say, absolutely. And they can go to their room, can't slam the door. They can go in their room and take a minute. And then they can come out and talk about it. Now, why is that? First of all, because I hate slam doors, but second, because what I want is for my son, my son to grow up, and when he's 40, I want him to say to his wife when they're fighting, can I just have a minute? Or when he's a father, I want him to say to his son, let's take a minute. So that's what I'm trying to teach now. I'm thinking of that long game. Now, if he goes and slams the door, we can absolutely do what, like our dads probably didn't take the thing off the hinges. That works. Why? Because the action is related to the reaction. We think about that a lot at school. Amber, with her work with kids with behaviors, sometimes her kids can't even articulate some of their behaviors. So Amber really has to think, okay, what happened and how can my reaction tie to it? One of the tools that a lot of us probably grew up with, when kids made mistakes at school, they were suspended. That's the tool they had. I always say that's the tool. It's like prison. No, everybody knows it doesn't work, but it's all we have, right? That's not a good enough answer. Now, there's times that removal is the only thing you can do. But what we try to think is, what did the child do? And what will teach them that this is unacceptable behavior in society, or in this family, or with their mother or father, or whatever. There has to be a direct correlation there. So again, you slam the door comes off the hinges. Or you were told to put your phone away, and you didn't, I'm taking the phone. Not for a month. I'm taking the phone for whatever amount of time. And then there's that importance of follow through. I think you all know this, but it's so easy to say that you're going to do something or say there's a consequence, and then it changes. We had a question in our earlier session from a woman. She was nursing baby number 3, and she was the question of screens came up, which will probably come up later. I won't go too much into that, but I said the thing we can't do is say, you have 5 more minutes on the screen, and then it's really 55. Right? And we've all done it. I mean, I've done it. You have 5 more minutes, then you need to get off that thing. And then I get into something, and I look at my watch, I'm like, oh my God, I did 35 minutes. Which means my 5 minutes doesn't really mean 5 minutes. And I kind of lost that follow through with my child. And so your role is just to think about the long game and think about the sustainability piece and follow through.
So, we're all here because being a parent is kind of terrifying, and it's great, and it's frustrating, and it's a journey. But I think too, just talking to you guys, there's a lot to be super hopeful about. And like we said to start off, we fully acknowledge we do not have all the answers. We are extremely flawed, and we kind of wanted to take this opportunity to give you guys a chance to have the floor, share your philosophy, share your questions and your ideas, and see where we connect.
So any questions? Anybody have questions?
She can run around, Kathy can run around. And we're educators, so we know about wait time. So we're going to sit here until we get some questions.
Yes, I have a question about screens.
Please.
Phones. I'm doing okay. I feel like managing my kids in my house on their phone time. I'm using like little screen limits and so forth. It's not easy. What I'm really challenged with is when their friends come over. Like, I see my kids doing their screens when they're by themselves and they're watching or zoning out on videos or TikTok or whatever. When their friends come over, I don't really want that to be time that they're playing and doing. I don't know what they do. They're 6th and 7th graders, so I want them to be doing something other than screens. And I'm having a hard time figuring out how to limit that, how to say no to the friends. Like I've gone the route of, okay, I know you're making a TikTok video, maybe 20 more minutes, and then we take the phones away. Just recently, I put up a basket at the front door that says no phone zone, and my daughter changed it to say free phones. But I'd love to hear feedback. I've been wanting to ask friends Like, what are you doing at your house when friends are coming over? Are you, because sometimes it's okay, like, if we're doing something together on the phone, I get that that's fun, but I don't want the whole phone to, because then it will eventually turn into, like, let's text so-and-so, or let's whatever, and
Well, I think you've hit on a question that we've all struggled with, and we definitely hear that at school. Every parent is struggling with this, especially when the kid says, like my son did recently, Tina, nobody's going to want to come over here if you don't let us play with our phones. I'm going to be, I mean, he might as well have said, I'm going to be the loser, and I'm probably going to drop out, and I'll live on the streets because of you. He might as well have said that, right? And it's hard because there's a draw to be, if not the cool mom, then at least the mom where everybody wants to come. Then we have that voice in our ear of, remember people saying to you, you want to be the house where the kids come so you can watch what they're doing. And so then you're like, nobody's going to watch the house. It's going to be awful. So I think that's a struggle that we all deal with. And then, again, family of origin. In my house, my husband feels very strongly. That's how they interact now. That's their social interaction, so let them. And I'm like, so 8 hours of Madden? Like, that's okay? Come on. There's got to be more movement. And then, of course, it snows and it's 2 degrees in January, and you're like, what else am I going to do? So it's a non-stop loop. Sarah, what do you do? Because I know that your 10th grader, they come over and
I don't know if anybody has older children, but I noticed that with my high schooler, it does get better. Like, I think when they first get the phones, you know, in middle school, I'm not saying my high schooler is not on her phone. I mean, we have lots of goals, limits, like we check the screen time, same thing. But I think as they get older, one, they get more involved with stuff, and two, they just, we talk a lot, and I'll say, like, we'll be out to dinner, and we have a no phone at the dinner table policy, whether we're home, out, and I'll make comments like, I love looking over at that table and seeing all those friends, and nobody has their phones out, you know? So just like pointing out, like, oh, look how much fun they're having, and they don't have their phones. But I will say that as they get, older, they kind of get, they still love their phones, but they're busy, and it's not like, they're
And I think that middle school age is tricky too. I see it when I go over to cells. They're awkward at that age. It's so hard to interact face to face, right? And so as parents, we've got this conundrum where we want to give them the place that feels safe, but we also don't want that to become their crutch. And so I think there is wisdom in saying, we're going to do no phones for a while right now, guys. And I think it's okay to be the mom who says, no, I'm going to ask that you play a game. They'll still come to your house, especially if you're Gatorade pizza. They'll still come. But it's okay to be the mom, the mean mom.
And I would find that they might actually appreciate a parent doing that, because I know, like, my daughters have sometimes gone on, like, weekend retreats where their phones have been taken from them, you know, so that they can focus on the community and doing what they're doing, and every one of their friends will say, it was really nice.
Right.
Like, so I think that they'll actually find really fun stuff to do. And
what we do in my house, it's a tip. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. My kids might end up proving me wrong, but we do 30 on, 30 off when friends are over. So you can do 30 minutes of screens and then 30 minutes off. What are we going to do? I don't care. Figure it out. Go outside. Whatever. There is great value in being bored. And there is great value in being bored with your friends. Because then they can do any kind of creation or whatever they need to do. Talking about each other, who cares? But 30 on, 30 off, 30 on, 30 off. We bought one of those clocks, Amber's familiar with these, the visual clocks, where you can actually see, there's just a big red mark and then it kind of slowly goes away. And then when that goes off, we're done. The other thing too is with screens, I worry that kids never get away. I mean, when we all grew up, when you went home, you could get away from all the stuff of adolescence. And so we are a family that phones are plugged in at night. I actually keep them up in my bedroom or right next to my bed, so that there's absolutely no way the kids can get on the phone. And
alarm clocks for Christmas,
yeah,
everyone.
people
alarm
say to
clocks
us,
for
well,
Christmas.
that's their alarm clock, and we're like, no, what, $5.99 Target?
texting, my kids are doing texting
Right.
too.
I look at the phone, I'm like, who's up at 3 a.m. texting this kid?
Clocks for Christmas,
Yes.
everyone.
And I think it's hard to put that toothpaste back in the tube if you don't set that limit now. And you want them to, first of all, get their sleep so they can think in a straight line, right? But you also want them to get a break from the constant barrage of social input. And you're the parent. You can say no phone. No phone after 8, after 9, whatever rule you set.
I want to say one more thing, just as a word of encouragement, because I know screens are, they weigh on all of us. But at the beginning of this school year, I let my class make a list of all the kinds of rewards they would like to earn. And so it could be an ice cream party, a popsicle party, extra recess. The electronics day was one of those. So I'm sure if you have elementary age kids, your kids' teachers have given like a reward as electronics day. We are now just to December, and this is the 5th reward they earned, and they just now voted for electronics day. So before that came, everyone brought in their board game from home. They voted for that. Fort Day. They wanted Fort Day. They wanted to bring in blankets and make the tables into forts. So we checked 5 things off the list, and they just voted yesterday for electronics day. So they want that creative time. They want that time.
I think it's like working out. You don't want to go. Oh God, it's awful, right? And then you do it, and you're like, oh, I feel so good. I'm going to do this again tomorrow. That's kind of what screens are for kids. When you take them away, they're so mad. But then they're like, oh my God, I had fun. I created something. We made it for it, whatever it was. Yeah.
And the positive of the 30 minutes on, 30 minutes off is during your 30 minutes, you can be making the most amazing TikTok dance. And then the 30 minutes on, they can record their TikTok dance. Exactly. That's what I do.
Probably share with the parents that the kids that are coming over what you
Can I
did.
tell the parents?
Yeah, so probably that helps and say, hey, you know what, we tried this and we had lots of fun. So then that gives the other parents a part to do it. And
Right.
it creates.
I think you've hit on an important point, which is we all wonder about that, but none of us are talking about it. So I think there might be great wisdom in saying, just FYI, it'll be 30 on, 30 off. But then you're going to get maybe a parent who's like, no, 30, that's a lot, screen time. So we're worried about the judgment. So it does. It feels very odd to me sometimes to tell my kids, friends, parents how I'm going to parent. So what I tend to do is my rules, my house, my rules. It sounds very much like my father. A little bit icky in that way, but it's true. It's my house, it's my rules. And if kids like my kid, they'll come over. And if they don't like my kid, he's got some work to do, right? So there's that too.
So I guess this is very common, and with my children always a constant fight about video game time. And so we had numerous talks, like eventually we settled on, okay, 1 hour on weekdays, maybe 2 or 3 hours on weekends. But then after he comes back from school, he's home alone, and he'll just, yeah, Mom, I set timer, yes, I only play 1 hour.
Then they lie.
But, yeah.
I just got on, Mom.
Yeah. And another friend said, okay, now you can get this on camera, and maybe you can watch it. But then, so I got one, and then he got so upset. He said, you should respect me. I'm 2 years old. So yeah, eventually he felt me out, like I quit it. I took the camera away, but I did see him play and
Yeah.
on the camera.
I think you just laid out a whole bunch of stuff there, right?
Yeah.
And you can't see it, but behind you, everybody's going, yes, I know. Especially if the child's home alone and the video game's kind of the babysitter, which is right here, I've done it. And then the things they say to us are very hurtful, and you're like, my entire family's falling apart because we're fighting about video games all the time. It's awful, right? And then you look at yourself like, I'm doing this all wrong. And they're very smart about the words they use.
I guess my question is, what's the successful, maybe experience, like how you truly enforce that when you are not there? And I guess maybe password, like
Yeah.
you can control remotely.
No, we set it on the machine.
Yeah.
No, we have to sign in for him.
There's a lot of tricks I've heard about. I've heard about password. I've heard about Wi-Fi shut on and shut off. I've heard about
Putting the game console in the trunk of your car.
Yeah.
And when you get home, yeah.
Yep.
And then when you get home, that he can have his hour.
Right. I told the story this morning, but the rule for my son was you have to get B's or higher. Well, guess what? You have C's. And my husband made the biggest show. He was like he could have won an Oscar. He went in and Jen, I need some pliers. So I don't know, probably a wrench, I don't know, I brought it, he unplugs it, he puts it in a bag, rattles the bag, he ties it, the rubber bag, he like tied 14 times, it never open. And he throws it over his back like Santa, and he walked out, and he put it in the car. And my son looked like he wanted to die. He's like, oh. But they were gone. And that was very liberating for us. We're like, oh, we can do that. That's right, we can do that. So I think we can get techie, we can get cameras, we can get timers and all that, or we can just take them. And then it can be something that's earned.
And you can say to him, like, unfortunately, you broke my trust. You lied to me and said that you weren't doing it, and I see that you did. You could probably come back and say, well, you broke mine by videotaping me. But, like, you're the adult. Like, it's your home, your rules. And, that brings out conversation. And it might be a little hot.
Well, and when he makes the comment about trust, that's that, I know what's going to hurt mom a little bit right now. And what as a parent, you would be like, no, I trust you. But I think in that situation, you can say, well, it's not about trust, it's about me giving you the structure you need. And kind of throw that back at him, so it's not a fight about trust now, instead of a fight about your expectations. So just saying, I'm going to do what's right for you, and you can be mad.
Yeah, we're so scared of our kids being mad at us, and we're scared that we are going to screw it up somehow. I think it's perfectly okay to say, you are not going to speak to me that way. Absolute, that's a no. That's an absolute no. And then that's where you can say, okay, I'm going to unplug this console, and I won't bring it back until I know that we can have a productive conversation about this. Kids love to say, you don't trust me. And it's okay to say, you're right. I don't.
So I was a teenager in the 90s, and so the big hair and the
Big hair
hairspray
guys,
and the blow dryer and the ratting, and my dad said, we need this cleared up at the end, after every morning. Like, this is too much. Your blow dryer, your all this, wipe off the countertop. And yeah, I'll get to it. My gosh, if he did not take my blow dryer, and I mean a week without a blow dryer in the 90s with the big hair, and it was torture.
He took her Aquanet.
Yes, everything, all my hair products. But I'm sure I was mad at him. But here I am, 30 years later, saying that was good. That was good. That was the right thing to do, and I'm thankful for that because I knew that was. He had asked me not to do that. It was a shared bathroom and mutual respect, and that's something we didn't really talk about. But, when you feel respected, you're willing to do more for your kids, right? And when they feel respected, it's kind of the same thing. So, I have no problem setting out the breakfast in the morning. It's just kind of something I do while I'm making my coffee and making sure everyone kind of has that nice start to the day. But my kids see that, and then, one of them will fill all the water bottles for the whole family. So it's just that, and I should change my tagline, because I say it about 100 times a day. It's all hands on deck. We need everybody in on this. If this family is going to run well, and we're going to make this work, and, we want smooth, days and nights, and we need all hands on deck. And you can definitely tell when somebody's carrying all the load. Right? When you feel overwhelmed, you feel like you're doing it all, it's really exhausting. So that mutual respect is a great thing because you want to do things for other people, and they want to do things for you.
Right. Another thing I don't want to forget to say, Sarah, is I learned a great line from Sarah to the point where my kids say, you learned that from Mrs. Milo.
Oh.
When I said no, and they keep coming at me, like I'm a tree trunk and they're woodpeckers, right? I say, full credit to her, you asked, I answered. They hate it. And the beautiful thing about it is all the S's and the A's and the K's, you can't say that fast, or it's yeah, I asked, yeah, I answered, right? So you have to slow down. You asked, I answered. Conversation's over. And I can say that over and over. It's not being a or whatever, you don't say the door. But that's a really great way to end the conversation and you come out kind of the last word ahead.
Going back to your comment of directing your correlation between action and reaction.
Yeah. I have a middle school girl. She turned 11. I see her horns.
Right.
Big horns. And she's sassy. She's sassy. So my husband you have watched your phone for your lifetime.
Yeah.
The TV, the computers. I'm like, honey, you're gonna turn the lights off next. What's happening? But I don't, it's not working. So that struggle, and then he says, well, I'm too soft. So I know my line's right? So I don't know where's the good middle ground. Like, too hard, too soft, right? There's nothing working in between.
Right. Well, here's what I would say. I sound like a therapist. I'm not. I think she's winning. Because what she has right now is she has you two against each other.
Yes.
And you know who wins then? She does, because you guys are too busy figuring out your path here. And she's got it, right? Even if she doesn't have her phone, she's won because she's created a divide.
No, tell about like when somebody gets in trouble at school, you're like, should I call my mom?
Oh yeah, oh I love that.
I mean, we know.
If kids get in trouble at school and I'll say, okay, so I'm gonna call your parents. No, I'm gonna call your parents. Who should I call? You should call Dad. I'm like, well, I'm calling Mom.
They know you.
They know you. They know you. And a lot of times, not to stereotype, I'm sorry, your dad's room, but a lot of times it's dads who are like, I'm taking your phone, you're not getting your bag, and they take everything, right? You are getting your driver's license until you're 18. Kids know what we can't sustain. And so then they can sit back and watch the whole thing implode. Like, this is not going to work. And Mom's probably going to come to my defense, or Dad, or whoever. They know that whoever's got more common sense is going to say, actually, really can't do that. And then Mom and Dad disappear in the bedroom to fight about it, and the kid's like, like watching a movie, bring the popcorn, and see how this one plays out. They did. They live in your house. Yes, they all live in your house. We see it too at school whenever a child gets in trouble and it's bad, and we say, can you come in to talk about it? Usually Mom's coming from work, Dad's coming from work, and they come together, and you can tell. You can tell if it's not going to go well. You can tell if they're a family where they're not on the same page. And it's awkward and awful, and usually the kids sit there like, Because when Mom and Dad are fighting about, even not openly, but if Mom and Dad aren't going to agree on the path, then there's going to be no path. So what I would say is, to your point, Sarah, about parenting 2 years ahead. You have to have conversations with your partner ahead of time. How are we going to do this when she? How are we going to do it when she? And at this point, for you, she's 11, so it's probably the smart mouth. It's probably saying things that you're like, oh my God, she was just 3. She would never have said that. Like, what happened? She's now 11. She's going to say things that like shock you, and that's where the poker face has to come, and you can say, you are not going to speak to me like that in this house. I hear you, but. I hear you, but. This conversation is over.
And how powerful for you and your husband to kind of have this conversation, go back and have this conversation and come together with that same message. You know what I mean? That united front is so powerful. I know for a fact that my parents did not agree on every parenting, decision, but I would have never known it. I would have never known it. Because they, whatever, and that's where some compromise comes in. When he thinks you're being too soft, or I'm like, whoa, like that's, you and your educational ideals.
Right.
But I would have never known that about my parents, and that family of origin plays a big part in it.
It's a huge part. My husband and I had a parenting breakthrough when my son was quite a bit younger about do we do corporal punishment in our home? Do we hit? And my husband said, my dad did. It's fine. Look at me. I learned. And I'm like, but we're smarter now. Certainly we can outsmart a 4-year-old, right? Certainly we can do this. You and I can talk through what happened, what's the action, and what's our reaction. And our reaction can't supersede whatever the action was, so that the story becomes our reaction instead of what happened. We can be smarter than that. And so we have to know our roots and our family of origin, come together and proactively agree on what we're going to do. My husband and I actually have a symbol. He's going to kill me for saying this publicly. But whenever I pull on my ear, it's saying, please stop. We have to talk. It sounds like it's also that's our signal when it's time to leave a party. It's like 8:30. But we'll say, he'll be going after one of the kids, or I will, and then it's this, just stop. And then we convene, whether it's in the garage or whether it's later, that gives her time, like just stop. My husband will name call, but like, that's stupid. And I'm like, we're not calling names.
Oh, we have a question right here.
I have a child that has the last word all the time. Always.
but for me, I struggle with that a lot.
Right.
And I wanted.
I don't want to talk all the time, so I'm making them.
Yeah, I mean, and part of it is what you're comfortable with too, but for me, if I sense, okay, my daughter, who it's only 3, that's a different ballgame, and right now it's even kind of cute sometimes, but it's not when they're older. But there's something to be said for, if she's, saying all of these things and going off the handle, and I know she's trying to get a reaction to me, just saying, you can be angry. When you're done with that, I'll talk to you. And that's also that gift of time. You don't have to solve that problem right then, because you're not going to either. But just taking control by showing control and just being willing to say, I can see you're angry, you can be mad at me, I'll revisit with you in a few minutes and just leave. There might be more words as well.
They might follow you with more words.
Right.
But
I think we can,
power.
and we can, what is the last word? Let's think that through. We're grown-ups, we can think this through. The last word in that moment, or the last word on the issue? So you can let him have the last word, and then you can turn to him and say, by the way, I'm still going to get the last word on this. But it's going to be in 20 minutes when we've calmed down. Sometimes at school, when a kid's in trouble and they're like, they're going at me, they try to get the last word, and I get fierce. And I'll tell parents, I talk to your daughter in a very stern manner, because I will say, you are not talking right now. You are not talking. I'm talking, and I get the last word. And a lot of times they'll give up. Okay, fine, lady. But sometimes they'll keep trying, and then I'll say, we're done talking, because in fact, I'm the grown-up and I am going to get the last word, but it's not going to be right now. And then we go to silence.
We have a question out here.
Hey, to go back when you said, absolutely, there's no way you're talking to me like that. So my son is an 8th grader, and he'll come home, and I know he's tired and he's had a long day. So I let him, he gets like 20 minutes, I'll let him watch TV, have a snack, and then kind of start homework. He'll be in the middle of homework, and I'll talk about something like for dinner or something, and it'll be just something stupid.
Right.
And he'll have a meltdown and start yelling, and I'm like, you can't do this. And I understand that he's tired and whatever, but like, how do I stop that? Like he'll realize that he has a meltdown, and then 5 minutes later he'll do the, I'm sorry, mommy, blah, blah, and he understands, like, how do I stop that?
Well, remember, he's a hormonal mess right now, too.
Yes.
And remember that a lot of things that may have happened in his day, I mean, we forget. He may have had to break up with him, or he got a grade in, so there's a lot going on in there, and his emotions are like this, and we all remember that. The adolescent brain is fascinating in how it processes information, and so he probably is really sorry, because he probably showed this side of himself that he doesn't even like. And so he's apologizing not only for his outburst, but for the person he was at that moment. And I think it's wonderful you're showing him some grace and some compassion. Yeah. But I also think we overuse that, they're tired, they have a hard day. We say in my house, we know you're tired. That's still no excuse to talk to us like that. It's not going to happen. You know who's tired? Mom's tired. That's who's tired. You don't know tired, right, kid? So I think there's a balance there. You have to show the compassion and grace for what they're going through and how hard it is to be 11, 12, 13 years old. But there's some things that are simply not okay. And maybe you can say, hand me whatever's most important to you until we can talk reasonably and rationally.
But kudos to you as like a parent, because you've modeled to him, like a blow up or whatever, and then he's coming back and apologizing. So that came from you. Right. Like, so think about that too. Like, okay, yeah, he did, but look at that positive of he's apologizing to you pretty quickly for his behavior. So that's kudos to you. Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. That's a huge positive for him to come back and apologize. And I think too, you want to validate that and say, I'm really glad you said that. I think sometimes too, if there's been something said that you can't let go, it's okay to say too, I thank you for apologizing, but I need a few more minutes. Just to show him the impact of his words. It sounds like he's already learning that. He already has a grasp on that, but it's okay to say, I'm not ready yet. I need a few more minutes, and then we can talk.
That was hurtful, or that really hurt my feelings.
There is nothing worse than an apology from a child that's not authentic, though. And we can smell those like a dead rat, right? Like, you're not sorry. And so then there's value in saying, okay, let's talk through what you're sorry for, and then make it the most excruciating 30-minute conversation ever. Talk to me about this. Tell me why you're sorry. Tell me what happened. And so they know that if they say they're sorry, they don't have to give a 5-page report on it. Then they have to really think through what they're sorry for.
Since 6th grade, kids have come home with Chromebooks from the school provides, and we've found out the next morning that they've been on YouTube at 11 o'clock at night on these. And so I've tried to find ways to limit that, control it. Glossy is an option, but it's pretty often used, and we don't say all the time. So I'm just looking for suggestions. With the Chromebooks, there are limited options as well as the circle link, local for
Right.
and using our router, or find that they're using the neighbor's router. So maybe I'm going to have all these devices locked up in the master bedroom. But
That's what we do, yeah.
I'm afraid the next morning,
No electronics.
we forgot when we have to go.
Right, that's what we do, we line them up. It's like a friggin' battleship
Yeah.
ground, man.
Yeah.
Okay, there's the Chromebook, there's the iPod, there's the iPad, there's the phones, and they're lined up like soldiers. And if one of them's missing, which luckily we haven't had that happen, but I'm saying if one of them is missing from this charging line, that one will be missing for a while. So they're lined up, and that's something we've done from the very beginning, Chromebook too. And so they know it's there, and they know that if any of it's gone, even one time, then we have big problems. And then you gotta follow through.
And if the homework doesn't get done, it's okay. Email the teacher and say, hey, we're working on something at home because Jimmy's sneaking YouTube instead of doing his homework, and that teacher is going to applaud you for following through with
I
something.
think
Like,
to be, sleep is essential. I mean, if you said, did you say 11 o'clock?
Yeah.
That's late for 6th grade, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think I heard you say you got to worry about them forgetting it the next day or not bringing it with them. And you know, the truth is that's another opportunity for teaching and responsibility. You know, if you do forget it, you're more likely to remember it the next time. So it might happen, but again, I think any teacher I've ever known would applaud you for taking a stand and noticing, you know, this is a really big issue for my kid right now. It's a big issue for all of our kids right now.
Yeah. Yep. Good question up here.
I have 3 kids, and my oldest likes to assume the role of a third parent, as a younger sibling, and especially his youngest sibling is 8 years younger. How do you, we always try to say sometimes there's different expectations because one's 7 versus 15, but that has been a challenge.
Right.
It's challenging either he directs
Right. We have
to him, or he's critical of that we're being too soft.
Right. I'll tell you what, mine's very easy. I say, I'm the parent here. Stop. Because I get that too. I'm like, what are you? You can barely brush your own teeth. You're telling her how to. So I say that all the time. I'm the parent. Stop. I'm the parent. I've got this.
I have the opposite. It's my 7th grader who thinks she's the parent over the 10th grader. So I have the complete opposite problem. She thinks, you know, she's the police. She's
Right.
the police of the whole house.
And don't you love it with the older one? They realize that you're not going to let them parent, and so they do this stuff like, "It's so stupid." Like you're not going to hear it.
Yeah.
Or then the tattling, the endless tattling. A trick, by the way, about tattling, just so you know, if you've got a couple kids, we distinguish in our house, are you tattling or are you reporting? If you're tattling, you want to get someone in trouble. If you're reporting, then someone is hurt or someone needs help. And so, are you tattling or reporting? I guess I'm tattling. Okay, because you want to get in trouble? All right, fair enough, go do something else. Reporting is hurt or needs help. And that helps too with that, the extra parent you have. Are you tattling or want to get someone in trouble? Amber, anything to add?
I mean, we have that big time in my family because there's 4 years difference. So my daughter, when she was 4, my son was a newborn. Now she's in 5th grade, my son's in 1st grade. She's packed her lunch since she was in 2nd grade. My son can't do it yet. We're working on it. He's doing parts and pieces, and she's always like, you always pack his lunch. Like, well, I did for you as well when you were in 1st grade. But you're 4 years older and fully capable of doing it. I've allowed you to grow, and just having those conversations of, I know it appears that it's not the same, but when you were this age, we did the same for you. And maybe you didn't. Maybe they're parent, you have to parent them differently, but just saying, I'm the parent.
We had a question this morning from a parent about that. She said, my kids need such different things from me, and I'm getting this, you don't do that for him, or how come he's allowed to, blank. We use this term in education all the time about differentiation. Kids need different things. Plants need different amounts of water. And it is perfectly okay to say, he's different than you are. The expectations and standards, what I do, what I don't do, it's very different. There's not equal.
Tagging on it, brought up from this morning, I think it was that same conversation, but anytime that you can be consistent about something is great, and that includes the adults in the household. So like if it's a no phones, at dinner, it doesn't matter if you're the 17-year-old, the 3-year-old, the mom, the dad, it's no phones at dinner. If it is all phones in the kitchen at night, it is all phones in the kitchen at night. I put a little disclaimer. My parents aren't ill. We still have a landline. I'm not expecting, calls in the middle of the night. My husband, our phones are in the kitchen at night. Anytime, no matter the age of the kids, whatever you can find that everybody's doing it. It's like that slogan, everybody's doing it. Wherever you can fit that in the little bits and pieces of your day, maybe soon enough it'll be in Amber's household, it'll be everybody's making their own lunch. But any little point in your family structure where everybody is on the same page is just a little gem.
I've heard a lot of parents confess to me that they text and drive, and they tell their kids not to. And you just have to think that through. I don't think they're watching. And so if mom and dad's phones aren't plugged in, or if dad's allowed to text and drive, or mom's allowed to drive, and I'm just picking up music. No, they're watching.
One more question.
I just had a comment. So a few years back, Norman Chubb was here, and the one thing that stuck out from one of his presentations was about parenting, like being parenting from, right? Like maybe I'm too strict, my husband's too lenient, whatever it is, go with like whichever. And so that stuck out today, and I always remember that from that presentation. And then going back to like the screens and friends, we were at a pool when we were here this weekend, and a friend took out a phone at rest period and wanted to be on the phone. And I was they're in third grade, and I was very uncomfortable because I'm like, yeah, like we shouldn't. This is third grade, like we're not allowed to do this. So I just said, I'm sorry, we're not allowed to have phones right now. You guys are together, your friends, you need to play. And I made them throw the football and do push-ups and planks and stuff, but eventually they forgot about it. And then I felt better, and I think I saw my son like, oh, okay, good, like that's all right. Like I didn't want to play on the phone anyways, I'm not going to use the phone. So I think, leaning into that discomfort at first to say no, and I was like, I was thinking, why am I upset about this? I don't want to upset mom, right? Maybe she, but I'm like, I have a career, and I think everybody ended up being happier in the end. But I think it's all about leaning into that discomfort.
Well, and here's what I think you did there. I wish I had talked about this a little more this morning too, is when we do something like let our kids be on the phone too long, or when we help them do things that they can do on their own, what we're saying to them is we don't think you can do this without me or without a phone. What you said to those kids is you can have fun without this. And I'm going to challenge you to do that. And it's the same as the lunch. If you step in and say, honey, you're cutting the apple wrong. The kid thinks my mom doesn't think I can cut the apple right. And it makes them this learned helplessness that sometimes we see at school, where it's like, you guys can do this. You can absolutely do this. You can absolutely have fun without the screen. You can absolutely fill time without going to that place.
This was a wonderful program. Thank you so much for coming. First of all, we want to, I hope this is all right, we are donating from P.E.R.C hats and gloves for kids that may need them at your school. And let's give them a big round of applause for a wonderful job. And we really appreciate everything.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure. We have really enjoyed being here. Remember, we're all in this together, so we have all in this together. Thanks, everybody. Get your jammies now.